Hello, all my bottoms up babes. This is your soul master, Kerie, taking the messiness in life, mixing it up, finding the message, and serving it to you straight. Because healing isn't linear, it's layered, and sometimes the breakdown is just the beginning of your breakthrough. Here, we honor the ache, speak the life into silence, and give the broken pieces a place to belong. This is the space where truth meets tenderness, where your story is sacred and your scars are seen. So breathe deep, open up, listen up, and let the healing begin. What if the story that you've been too afraid to tell is the one that could save someone else's life? So many of us carry silence, not because we want to, but because it's safer than the truth. But silence doesn't set us free. It keeps us chained to the moments that we survived. And today we're breaking that silence because your story matters, my story matters, and someone out there needs to hear it, to believe it, so that they can make it through too. Last week, I sat with the host, Taylor, with Unrestrained Boldness, a true silence of stories. And she had asked that I share my story to break the silence of domestic violence. And I'd like to share that with you. Life will always be lifing, right? We will never have a day that something isn't. Look at us this morning. We're having the Mondays, it's just, that's just life. The life will always have some kind of curveball because we didn't make this life. We just live it, And so if you don't count the burdens, but you actually seek the blessings, you will always strive to see what is out there and what is coming your way. And, when you realize that this isn't to destruct you, it's actually to discover you, to discover your true meaning and purpose of why you're here. And, a lot of us we are so adaptive to living in a life to always help others and be a person for another, when really we need to be that person for ourselves. And that is where, again, it's not to destruct you or destroy you, it's to discover you so you can finally live in that authentic self of yours and be free. Because we're all sitting here living in this life that's like, do better, get more money, more this. And it's like we're stretching for these desires, but we're not feeling the love of what we've done. Why can't we sit in the moment and enjoy the process? Because the process and the obstacles are the path, the true path of where you're supposed to go, with life in general. And once you realize that, you don't see life as a destruction anymore. It's more wow, I needed that heartache or whatever to discover myself.
You were sharing some stuff with me before we went on live, and you've been through a lot. What gave you the strength to start speaking about them publicly, like the way you have on your Bottoms Up podcast, and to share your story with others? What gave you the strength?
What gave me the strength is my story, and I know wholeheartedly because I was that person looking for another's story, is the survival guide for someone else. And realistically, you don't realize that, wow, this was actually done, until you're on the other side of it. That's when you realize, wow, that was done because God was saving me. That rejection was my protection. And once you see that, you're like, oh my God. And so that's why I tell my story, because in my darkest moments, I was, my story is abuse. I was with someone that was severely abusive. And it got to the point where if I stayed, it was 100% chance that I was going to die. Because if it wasn't the hands of my abuser, it was going to be from the stress that was caused, making me so sick, being, abused. Dave, we sit in the pain. We're sitting in the fire. Of course, you're going to get burned if you sit there. You got to keep moving. You're going to have blisters. It's going to be sore. You're going to go through pain. But I'm telling you, once you're out of that fire, you are going to see that life is so beautiful. And it really is such a gift. You get to a point where you're so beaten down, and so just your self-esteem and self-confidence and self-worth is just so little that you feel that now you're actually a burden to the people that you love and to the blessings that you have. And so the reason that I was suicidal, it wasn't because I wanted to die. It was because death sounded peaceful, and I craved peace more than anything. Hey, I
Because
wasn't living to live, I was living to survive. And it
wow.
gets tiring. It gets tiresome. You want to throw that towel in, just like you said, because
Mhm.
what is there left for me other
Yeah.
than struggle and destruction and chaos? I just want to be at peace. I just want
Mhm.
a day of peace because I know that there's someone in there contemplating that death right now, thinking of it like it's a 5-course meal and feeling the flavor of it because it just sounds so peaceful.
Mhm.
And I'll be the first one to say, I mean, Joe, I had the extension cord around my neck. I stood on a 5-gallon paint bucket. I had 1 foot off. And you know what saved me? The light popped. The light in my basement popped. And I thought,
Wow.
oh my God. So I stepped backwards, back on the bucket. That's how close I was to suicide. That is how
Wow.
close. And if that isn't someone saving grace and someone telling you, and if my voice isn't the
Yeah.
voice of telling you that there's hope, then
Yeah.
I mean, you got to keep going. You got to keep going.
Mhm.
I hope that it just falls in the ears of the person that needs to hear this because we are all someone. We are some of the one, and we
Mhm.
all are a masterpiece, a piece of the master, and that's just it. We have to
Yeah.
take those pieces, and those pieces are what build that masterpiece. And
Yeah. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And sometimes, it appears that the world is against us and
mhm,
everyone else is against us, and we just throw our hands up and say, "Chuck it, whatever happens, happens."
yep,
Uh, and you said you were so close to
yes,
that, and thank God for the light bulb
yes,
that popped,
yes,
which was a saving grace. It was not your time and not the way that God wanted you to leave this earth, even though you were looking for peace,
yes,
uh, because He had a bigger plan for you, and He still does, especially the way you tell your story and you walk through those particulars. And a lot of people are living what they're not living.
yes. It's
You
all mental. When you
Mhm,
start
mhm,
training, I tell individuals this. If we eat junk food, our body starts to show that, right? I mean, if you sit here and
yeah,
eat like McDonald's every day, you're going to eventually look like you eat McDonald's every day.
mhm,
And that's the same thing with the mind. If you feed your mind negativity every single day, all it has to disperse is negativity. But if you
yeah,
start feeding your mind positivity and that's all you feed your mind, that's all your mind is going to have to disperse, and you will start seeing things in a different way because
mhm,
you're changing your mindset to the positivity, mindset. And when you don't and you see everything in a negative manner, that's all, of course you're going to see everything negative because that's all you're feeding your mind to know. And that's
right,
the same thing with the body. We really are parts of chemistry and
mhm,
science and so forth. And that's what you have to do. You have to change that mindset, and I'm telling you, once you do that, your whole life will change. It really
right,
truly will. I mean, there's always going to be bad days, but
mhm,
how would you know the good days if you didn't experience the bad days? Just like you would never know the sun if you didn't experience the rain. As much as we want someone to come down and do the work for us, and we want this, saving grace and this, human to just drop from the clouds and like pick us up like a crane, it doesn't happen that way. The change comes when you change, when you make the change and you are the change.
mhm,
That is when it changes. And it
yeah,
starts with you. You got to realize that there's a bigger purpose, a bigger plan. And
yeah,
if you woke up this morning and you're still here, there's more for you.
right, absolutely. And you have to be willing as well to want to do it, to live and to put in
Mm-hmm.
the work. And there's a weight, a weight of silence. When I think about all the stuff that we have gone through, that I've gone through, that you're explaining and sharing right now, there's a weight of silence. For many survivors, it becomes a protection, right? When we keep
Mm-hmm.
silence, when we silence ourselves or we keep quiet about it, we don't want anyone to know, whether because of pride or people just wouldn't understand what I'm going through, or I can't let them know or see this side of me because we have this face that we put on, right? This mask and this facade, oh, look at us. We're either the good couple from the outside, so I can't let people on the inside to see what goes on. So we let that silence protect us. But then when we realize that silence is no longer keeping you safe, but keeping you stuck, like for you, when did you realize that? When did you realize that your silence no longer was keeping you safe?
You know, an abuser wants you to be silent because that's how they can get away with what they're doing.
Mhm.
And so when you start to realize that your voice is actually what sets you free, and this story is not for me anymore. This story is for
Mhm.
someone out there that's being silent and needs to
Right.
be the voice to free themselves. Because we get into comfort, we're all creatures of habit, and we get into
Mhm.
comfort and we sit in these circumstances and these situations that we're in our life because that's what keeps us safe. But in reality, your voice and the person you are to become is what's going to
Mhm.
set you free. And that's what you need to do. If you want to be free, you need to start becoming the person you're meant to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow.
And that's why I need to use my voice. My voice isn't for me, it's for you, it's for,
Right.
the person that's listening that needs to know that.
With your transformation,
Mhm.
were there ever any moments or any time that you doubted your own strength? And how did you push past that?
I, I still to this day, it's been 2 years post my trauma, and what I say is spiritual awakening, because I'll be the first to say, I know I've mentioned God in here a few times, and it doesn't even matter of religion. To be honest, I would even say
Yeah.
I'm not even religious, I'm more spiritual. I feel things in a different level. But the reason that I say that and why I mention that is because I was never that kind of person. I would never quote Bible verses, and I
Mhm.
wasn't this big, Bible thumper or going to church all the time or nothing like that. So I don't want it to seem that I'm forcing any sort of religion or aspects or beliefs or
Right.
nothing, because honestly, I just believe that there's a bigger creator. That's, I actually say Gus because I say, God, universe, source. Like, I just say, I call him Gus. Like, that's just my name for him, but that's just
Yeah.
my own nickname. But, I, once you see that what made me go, and like I said, I still doubt. I still have doubts, and I have to remember that I have to trust and I have to know. And one thing that has kept me going is, there's Corinthians in the Bible, and it says, "Love is patient and love is
Mhm.
kind."
Mhm.
And one thing I didn't have was I didn't have no dang on patience. I wanted stuff to be done yesterday. Let's keep on moving. Get to the next thing. I just said that's kind of actually I feel like how everyone is raised. We're always raised to do better, get
Yeah.
more. And, realistically, we never sit in the moment. And
Yeah.
that's where I started to know that, like, I'm forcing a transformation and I'm forcing something when really, you know, you may be in the darkness and it may be scary, but like
Mhm.
sit in that moment because there's a reason that you're there. There's a reason that you're sitting there because you need to understand and it may not be going the pace that I want it to be, because trust me, I would be like, all right, what do we have next? I mean, that's again, now it's my old mentality. I'm always ready for the next thing. But you have to keep moving forward, because if you're, like I said, if you're still here, there is a bigger plate for you
Mhm.
still waiting, and the blessings are undescribable. I mean, once
Yeah.
you start realizing, again, count your blessings, not the burdens, you'll
Mhm.
start realizing, like, wow.
You wouldn't have it's interesting that you mentioned that because this is a lot of what you're saying. If you notice, I've been nodding and smiling because everything that you've said, I've lived it, I've resonated with it, I've written about it,
Yeah.
uh, and it's interesting too that one point that you just brought up, the one questions, because I look back and I say, I wouldn't be myself now if I hadn't gone through that. See,
Yes.
a year ago now, a year ago from I mean today from then, I wouldn't have this mindset that I have now. That if I've gone through that, I've lived through it, I am this new person. I'm calmer. I'm more me. I feel more authentic. Whereas before I felt like I was performing. Yeah,
Yes.
if that makes sense. And now I don't have to perform. Right?
No.
I don't have to perform. Now I feel like I'm alive. I feel the best that I've ever felt. And it's amazing how I thought that back then I needed someone to
Yeah.
help me to feel that way. Isn't that strange?
Yes. And love is inner.
Yeah.
And we were raised in these school curriculums and so forth to always look at love on the outside, because
Mhm.
this person's going to make me this and that car is going to make me feel that and this clothing or this makeup line or whatever is going to make me feel this way. But really, that's not love, that's desire. You're
Mhm.
desiring to be something or desiring that this fad makeup I'm sorry, this fad diet pill is going to make you look like whatever, like that's the desire because you saw that so and so looked this way,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
so and so did that. Well, we are all individually created. Not one person is the same person. That's why we don't have the same thumbprints and fingerprints and
That's
so
right.
forth. So a
Right.
beautiful soul and someone that sits inside of their own authenticity is a lot more beautiful than someone's beach body that's walking down the
Absolutely.
street. Because guess what? We all get old, our skin all sags, and it and life gets stressful. So trust me, what you see today is maybe not what you're gonna get tomorrow.
Right, right.
And I'll tell you, healing isn't for everybody. The spiritual awakening stuff isn't for everybody. I will be the first to say that, because you'll go through the whole, like, you got to break from the codependency part of it, and the codependency part of it is exactly what we had just talked about, thinking that
Mhm.
this magic pill is going to make me skinny and this car is going to make me feel hot, for a week, and this guy's going to make me feel sexy for the day or whatever. Like, that's the codependency you have to break. Then you
Mhm.
start realizing it's almost like, the veil gets taken off of you and you start actually seeing people through the glasses and the lenses that
Right,
you're
right,
supposed to see people. So then
right.
all of a sudden, since God removed you from the room, now all of a sudden these people are getting removed too. So now you start seeing, like, wow, they were fake the whole time. Or like, wow, she would always tell me that because she wanted X, Y, and
Mhm.
Z. And,
Mhm.
it's like you start seeing people for who they truly are. That way, I used to open my heart so much to just everyone, but not everyone has the same heart as you. And when you start
Yeah.
to realize that some people are actually out here for ill will, and, you know, we all think that the devil wears a cape and has a pitchfork, but I'm telling you, they actually look as good as your husband laying next to you. And we want to see the beauty in everyone. Anyone that has a true, authentic heart wants to see the love and the care in every single person. And we're rooting for even those that have the hurt and the evilness inside of them. And, we still wish best and we still have hope for them. And that's just it. God's door is always open.
Mhm.
It's not your past to define you. You got to discover
Yeah.
yourself. And
Yeah.
the only person that can do that is yourself.
Healing is not for everyone. On that
Mm-hmm.
particular note, I I tend to agree in the sense that while yes, everyone is healing is available to everyone, not everyone accepts healing. Some people have
Mm-hmm.
hardened their hearts, and no matter how much you try to help them,
Yeah.
once they've hardened their hearts and closed that door, you can want the healing for them, but if they don't want it, there's nothing that you can do.
Nope.
And I say that because I've tried. I've
Yeah.
done I've done more than enough trying and sacrificing my own peace and self sense and self worth to help others to heal. But once that heart is hardened, you just have to say, okay, fine. Do you continue to try going down that path to help that person to heal them, or you try to save yourself?
Yes.
Then it becomes a choice.
Well, and there's an old saying that says, you can lead a horse to the water, but you can't make them drink. As we bring this episode to a closing, as you see, in order to make changes and for things to change, you have to be the change. And never underestimate the power of your voice. People are not mind readers. You have to use your voice to get help, but also use your voice because what once broke you can now build you, and it could be someone else's hope. Your silent story might just be the survival guide to not only yourself, but for another soul that's lost in the dark. And that is where healing begins. Thank you so much for joining us this week on Bottoms Up. Never forget how amazing you are, and we'll see you soon.